MyPillow.com has become one of our newest sponsors, and we wanted to tell you that you should visit them, check out their products. One of our favorite products is their towels. As you know, you can get towels that are very absorbent, but also a little coarse.
Yes.
And you can get towels that are very soft and it takes forever to get dry.
Yes.
But we have fallen in love with these MyPillow towels because they are both soft and absorbent.
Yes.
And I think are my favorite. I've used a lot of towels.
David
they are my favorite.
Goes on and on about these towels. He has loved them. And ladies, they wash up beautifully and they just keep on being soft and being absorbent.
You should check out MyPillow.com. And while you're there, look over their clothing, look over the slippers, their footwear, mattresses, mattress toppers, their bedding, and use promo code YOUNG, and they will offer several, even sometimes free gifts. And check it out and see what is available today. MyPillow.com/young. Hello and welcome to Keeping It Young podcast, conversations about marriage, family, and ministry life. I'm Dave.
And I'm Bethlie.
And we are the Youngs.
Welcome.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we are having a good day. Hope you are.
Yes, we are.
And wherever you are and whatever's going on in your life. And we're sure thrilled and happy that you've joined us again on the Keeping It Young podcast. And we are so excited. We're winding up the singles, our singles series.
Saga.
And getting prepared to begin recording our new series on conflict resolution.
Resolution.
These are good days.
Which we will answer a question from one of our singles during that conflict resolution series.
Absolutely.
So
and
hang on, singles.
It's coming. Your answer is coming. It's on the way, coming up here in future episodes. But we've enjoyed this singles study and just connecting with many of our single friends. And I know our church has a lot of singles, and many of your churches do as well, and many of you are single. So I hope you've been able to share this with some of your friends, and certainly hope you've been able to put into practice some of the things you're learning.
Right.
Hey, if you haven't signed up or thought about coming to the Couples Prayer Advance in October in Pigeon Forge, you'll find that information on the opening page of our Keeping It Young podcast website. So look that up and consider joining us. And again, if you haven't left a rating or liked or subscribed, I hope you'll do that as well.
Yes.
And we certainly would be thrilled about that if you would do that. Mm-hmm. Are you ready to get started?
I am. I have been amazed at how much feedback we have gotten from this series.
Sure.
To the singles or about the singles or with the singles, whatever you want to call it. It's just been really, really good. We've gotten some good questions, one of which we're going to answer here. And then we've gotten just good feedback, some things that the singles would, I don't know how you would put it, just want their married friends to know about them. And it was very helpful to us to read through, but I think it will be helpful for our married listeners to listen to also. And then maybe for the singles out there that are still listening, you will feel a little like you're not alone. Oh, good. Someone else feels that way too.
Absolutely. And we're even going to give you some suggestions because some of the things that you're mentioning, it does go both ways. So we can give a perspective on the other side of some of the things you're facing.
Absolutely.
So are you ready to get started here?
Yes.
Let's do it. And let's begin with this question. And just a heads up for you that send questions, sometimes a question is quite brief. And one of the things that help us, we realize when we answer a question like this that we may not be even going to cover what you meant in your heart.
Right.
And so any details or a little, more information you give in a question can help us to know what's going on in your life. But we're going to just give the question as you stated it. And Bethlie's going to answer it.
Well, we shall see.
Okay. And here's the question that came in. When do you cross the lines of guy, girl, flirting, or just friends? I think maybe that's a two-parter. Do you think?
It might be.
Yeah, so maybe that's the best way to look at it. Let's answer that as a two-part. When is a line crossed in a guy-girl flirting?
Well, see, this is one of those things that we're like, oh, what exactly do you mean? Do you wonder if the flirting is too much and it's crossing a line, it's being inappropriate? I would say if you're uncomfortable with it, it's crossing a line. That's simple. Where I would say, I also would say sometimes if you've grown up in a very conservative background and you do not have a great deal of experience of guy-girl relationships, there may be something that is just normal to a friendship, or to guys who grew up in a home with sisters. They may feel a little more comfortable with things. And so there might be something said or some teasing that goes on that you feel like, oh my goodness, are they flirting with me? And it may not be a flirt at all. They may just be being a guy, because guys like to tease girls because it gets a reaction out of girls. Sometimes it's flirting, sometimes it's just to see your reaction.
That's a good point.
So I really don't know, because I'm not sure where this question came from. But I would say, first of all, if it makes you uncomfortable, it crosses a line.
Sure. And then we could also add to that, we give grace. So if you're uncertain, the Bible says that love thinks no evil.
Right.
So you give grace if you think, well, I think this guy's a flirt. Maybe it's just by personality, they're more outgoing, or maybe they're on a more, more comfortable with, a guy with a girl or a girl with a guy. Mm-hmm. So give as much grace as you can, but if it's something you're uncomfortable with, just make that known and withdraw, or communicate it in such a way that they know that that's not something you're comfortable with.
Or it could be that you are hoping that they're flirting with you and you might be reading a little bit too much into it. I would say communication is a good thing. Instead of getting your hopes up and thinking, well, you know what? He crosses the auditorium every Sunday morning just to say hi to me. He must be flirting. It could be that he
Surely
just
girls
knows.
don't think like that.
Well, some do, I think. Hopefully not. But anyway, that was
Good.
That was just an example. But if you feel like maybe he's going out of his way to talk with me or tease me or want to be around me and you're not really sure, just ask. Just say,
So
hey.
answer that second part there. So they're probably connected.
Okay.
When you cross the line of just friends, we're not just friends anymore.
I would think probably that would use some communication, or need some communication too. So that if you feel like, wow, he seems to be flirting with me and I do like it, I do like this newness that has come into our relationship, maybe just say, hey, could we talk a little bit? This seems to be changing. Are things changing for you? In your heart, do you feel an attraction, or do you feel like you'd like to explore a new level of our friendship? Communication would be really good, because it could be that the other person is like, no, I wasn't thinking that at all. I like to just be friends. Or it could be that the other person is like, yes, I do feel like things are moving along. We were at a singles get together just last night at our church, and the assistant pastor's wife, who is, of course, he's in charge of our singles, and so she was there. She had to slip out for a bridal shower, but she told me that the young couple that's getting married, they had been in the singles group actually for years together, and just within the last probably year to 18 months is when they started dating and fell in love. So it could happen that you're in a group with someone, you've been friends for a while, and all of a sudden that friendliness turns into maybe a little bit of flirting, and then both of you know, okay, we're headed somewhere. But I would think it would need some communication.
Yeah, probably the thing is to ask, to talk, to communicate.
Yes, and that can be a little awkward.
It can be.
Yeah. But if you're good friends to begin with, then you should be able to ask each other questions.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, then let's take this a different direction here. We wanted to answer that question. But we did get an email early in our series in which basically a friend that we've known for some time did write, and she said, I've appreciated your recent podcast on singleness, and I wanted to add my perspective since you were kind enough to invite us to chime in. And so she said, thank you for saying several times that singles are valuable to the church just as much so as married couples. And this is not often stated. And she says that from a singles perspective, many times the message the church sends seems to be the opposite. And what she says by that is that sometimes churches have youth activities, couples activities, no Sunday school classes for singles. And the message seems that we're not worth of the attention or the effort. And I can understand that, though I do know from ministry side, the other side of that is that sometimes the singles are, I don't want to say less dependable, because that's not what I mean by that. But a lot of times singles are more apt to move around. Their job situations, because of their singleness, can involve they'll be there one Sunday, not the next Sunday.
True.
And so singles ministry is very difficult because there's just an element of uncertainty to it all the time.
Right.
And singles move, they come in, they come out, they are more apt to go on vacation because they can.
Right.
Or just to leave for a Sunday because they can, whereas the married folks are typically more, they're going to be there because their kids have school, their kids have a schedule, the teenagers are there because their parents bring them.
Right.
And so there is a different level there, but I certainly understand that side of that. Right?
I would also think that a church would have a singles ministry, such as a Sunday school class or activities based on the number of singles within their church. If there are only a few of you, maybe one or two, then maybe your pastor does not see the need to implement a whole ministry just for the two at the time. I know in our church, we do have many, many, many singles in our church, and we do have a singles ministry, but I also know from our assistant pastor, there are several different nights of the week that they are busy trying to keep up with the work schedule. So what David was saying is true. Sometimes our singles can be there for Sunday night connection class. Sometimes they can't. They need to be there Monday night for a Bible study.
Right.
And so he moves things around. Not all churches would be able to do
There's
that.
a lot of variables involved when
Yes.
it comes to singles.
Yes.
She says, in my experience, very few married couples know how to invite single people into their circle. And I know you were going to comment on that a little bit. From the other perspective, Sundays can be days that emphasize one's singleness because of the nature of Sundays being a family day. And there's just quite a few things she mentions here. But here's kind of where it all heads. Let's see. I would love to hear a follow-up episode, 2 married couples on what their single friends would like to tell them. And so that kind of piqued my interest. And I said, well, I tell you what, how many single friends could you get to give a comment on this is what we'd like to say to married folks or to our church?
Yes.
And so this is kind of where this final episode is coming from.
Yes.
So she pulled a ton of single friends of hers and they made a list and sent them to us. And by the way, she did mention a book that she thought has been a great help, and it's called 7 Myths About Singleness by Sam Alberry. And I haven't read that yet.
I haven't either.
And but I wanted to recommend that because we just think this might be a good idea. So I feel that her recommendation is worth passing along to you. And so consider that one, and we'll be adding that to our reading list as well. So here's the list. All right. This is about advice from singles that they would like their church or married friends to know about them.
Okay.
Right. So I'm going to just jump in and get started.
Yes.
And you can comment.
Okay.
We'll get as many as we can. There's quite a few other. We may skip a couple here and there.
All right.
So she said, for dating or newly married couples, don't drop your single friends. Well, I said she. From a singles perspective, for dating or newly married couples, don't drop your single friends. Try to include your friends in some activities with your fiance or your spouse. And it doesn't have to be awkward to do things all together. I think what is being said right there is that sometimes singles who have had friends, once you get in a fiance relationship or a marriage relationship, the demands change, the attention does change.
Yes.
Marriage does, and the engagement process does put a lot of different things in a person's life that's never been there before.
Yes.
Takes a lot to work those through, but it's probably valid to say, don't forget about your single friend. They're still your friend.
Absolutely.
Include them, love them, spend time with them, be aware of them. I think that's valid. Do you think so?
Absolutely. When we were looking over this list before and talking about it this morning on our walk, the 2 words that came to my mind that seem to be flagged here over and over is thoughtfulness and inclusiveness. Singles want to be thought of and they want to be included.
That's exactly right.
Is valid. Yes.
And I will tell you that Bethlie and I have experienced that. One of the things that we try to do in this area is reach out to singles. We live near Pensacola Christian College, so sometimes there's a lot of singles we know there because we are friends with their parents or we've ministered in their church.
Right.
So we've had a lot of, especially single young men in our home.
Yes.
And Bethlie has spent more than a few hours with single young ladies. They tend to go more for coffee. The guys, we can easily have them in our home.
Yes.
And they're very comfortable that way. But we've just found that opening our home periodically to those who are single and just having a meal or having a cup of coffee. And be prepared for one thing for our married friends and ministry friends who are listening. Singles don't have the same kind of a schedule that married folks have. And they don't have to be aware of the children. So sometimes you can expect them to stay longer And you have to be okay with that because
And it's fine.
It's fine. So just roll with that.
And usually they're just fine with hanging out too.
Yeah.
So you can talk for a while and then you can say, hey, I need to go take care of this with the kids. And usually they're fine and they may just jump in and help you too.
Yeah.
So
or they
good.
may sit and be on their phone while they're waiting for you to finish what you need to do.
Yes.
So just be aware of all of that. Here's a second one. You want to look at that one?
Yes.
Go ahead.
It says, while we want to be included and invited to events like birthday parties or barbecues or bridal showers, please also give us an out if we're not feeling up to joining in, especially if it will be mostly a couples event. When you issue an invitation, giving extra info is helpful. For example, there will be mostly married couples there, or there will be a mix of singles, couples, kids, etc. So I think what this one is saying, and these are all from, I think, a variety of people.
Yeah, this is from a variety.
So what this one is saying is just let them know ahead of time. Is it going to be all of your married friends that are at your barbecue and you just happen to invite them? And maybe this could be a heads up to our married friends too, that if you're going to send out an invitation, maybe invite a variety of people, not just families, not just married couples, but invite a few of the single folks from your church.
And I would give one caveat before we leave this one to you that are single. Just remember that if you take an out all the time or most of the time, eventually people just assume you don't want to be a part.
True.
And it will mean that you don't get that many invitations. So take as many as you can, even at times where it's not convenient.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Number 3, including us in the mundane makes us feel part of a family. And this one is really good. Inviting us over for a regular weekday evening. Even if it just means helping the kids with their homework or doing dishes or being a part of bedtime routines. This single said, my first year living away from home, I had a family who gave me an open invitation to their Friday nights. Usually involved pizza, and we usually watched a movie. I could stay as long as I wanted, and often I stayed up with their kids even later than the parents stayed up, and that was my favorite night of the week.
That sounds like fun.
I thought that was a very helpful one.
It is very helpful, and this is another reminder to us married people. Sometimes you feel like if you have someone over, whoever it is, whether you're having singles from your church or another family or whatever, you just feel like you've got to scrub the house from top to bottom, and you've got to make your gourmet meal or whatever. And I have found it is most helpful to me just to make sure things are picked up, do my normal daily whatever, pick up and just add a little extra to whatever eating for that evening. So we just make a family meal. And I know we have had singles comment on, this is really good. This is just home cooking. I haven't had something like this in a long time. You know, maybe it's just a casserole and some salad and some French bread or whatever. So don't feel like you have to put on the dog just because you're having someone over. Just assimilate them into your normal family evening.
And one of our single guys that was in our home recently, my wife just made macaroni and cheese. It was a homemade macaroni and cheese.
It was.
And but he told his mom that it was the best he had ever had.
Which made me feel terrible because his mother is a great cook. She is amazing.
But she handled it well, and she was happy that we had him in our home.
Yes.
So here's number 4. This is from singles now. Church activities are intimidating. Even at a church where we've been members for years, we have the pressure of finding someone to sit with or to talk to. And many times we feel like we have to intrude into a conversation before we find someone to talk to. Even something as simple as finding someone to pray with at a prayer meeting can be difficult.
Yes.
And, all that makes sense. And for you that are, in the ministry or married, be aware of singles around you and reach out to them. Sometimes it's just a matter of saying, do you want to pray with us?
Yes.
Or, hey, come sit with us.
Would you like to sit with us?
Yeah.
And you know what? This isn't just married people towards single people or single people towards married people. I would say this could be problematic in just about every church because people are very self-focused.
Yes.
You go, you sit, you scroll on your phone till the pastor gets up, and then, he may instruct a prayer time, and you just are like, sure, I'll just pray by myself, or I'll just pray next here with my husband, and you don't look around. So be looking around. Who's sitting by themselves? Who needs someone to pray with?
Yeah. And it goes back to even what I mentioned last week about Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. You smile first. You speak first, and make it on both sides. If singles, if you'll work at that, married folks, ministry folks, you'll work at that, then we really help the entire church. So
Absolutely.
That's a really good, that's just practical Christianity.
A few Wednesday nights ago, we were home and we had the men were having a Bible study in a separate place on Wednesday night. And David said, hey, I think I'm going to join that Bible study. I'm going to see what they're doing in there. I want to check that out. And I said, oh, okay. Which meant I was going to the auditorium service by myself, which wasn't exclusively women. There were still men in there. Pastor was still leading. And so I went in and I sat down and I was, just waiting till the service had started. I was looking around a little bit. People, trickle in on Wednesday nights. And I was pleased as punch. One of the single girls came up to me and she was like, hey, we're all sitting back there. You want to come sit with us, Mrs. Young? And it just totally made my day. And so I went back and sat with this whole row of single girls and we prayed together and we sang together and we enjoyed the service together. And so it can go both ways. It was awesome.
Absolutely. Here's number 5, what singles would like married folks and ministry folks to know. We appreciate when friends actually ask how things are going regarding being single. It's a normal part of our lives, and to have someone acknowledge and ask how we're doing is appreciated. That's valid.
It is valid. Very and good. It makes sense. Instead of asking them, so when are you going to get married? Maybe just ask them, hey, so how's it going? Yeah. Is your job going well? And are you figuring things out as you're adulting and whatever? Now,
this one's interesting. I just thought I'd read this one. There's some small but practical things they said that we can do that can be helpful.
Okay.
And this first one kind of made me chuckle a little bit. Sharing leftovers. Meal planning can be hard unless you want to eat the same meal for several days in a row, because most recipes aren't geared towards single people. We've even noticed that as our parents have gotten older. I remember your mom and dad complaining all the time. It's really hard to prepare a meal just for 2 of us.
Just for 2.
Yeah. Yep. So we get that part. If you have a single portion of a meal left over, offering it to a single person might make their day.
Absolutely.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And here's 2 that are very good. You that are listening, think about this in relation to those who are single. Offer to be an emergency contact. Singles living far away from their family may not even know whose names to give in case there needs to be an emergency connection.
Absolutely.
That's really good. And tell a single girl to feel free to call your family if they ever feel like they're in an unsafe situation.
Yes.
Knowing who to call without feeling like being a nuisance gives great peace of mind.
Yes.
I think those are good. Any thoughts on those?
It's just something for us as married folks to be aware of. Do you have a single young lady in your church? Well, be aware of her. Maybe offer to her. Just say, hey, listen, here's my number. If ever you need anything, please let us know. If your dishwasher breaks or if your vacuum cleaner doesn't work, could you please let us know? Because my husband might be able to fix it for you, or we can get you somewhere where it can be fixed.
Absolutely.
Or if ever you feel like, you know what, this is an unsafe situation, please call us. We will come right away.
And there's several others listed here. Offer to give a single person a ride to the airport. Offer to come over and help. You just mentioned that one. Give an open invitation for a certain night of the week. That's already been brought up.
Yes.
Invite us to sit with you at church.
Yes.
Even tell a single person, if you're close enough, that you're praying for their future spouse. And I suppose that would mean you are.
Yes.
Because if you're not, and you say that would not be true. So refrain from comments like, why aren't you married yet? Or once I surrendered, my life as a single person, God gave me my spouse.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
So that would just fall under the category of be careful what you say.
Yes.
And
be gracious.
Here's
be kind.
Number 9 I thought was interesting in this list. Read that one for us.
Please don't offer to set someone up unless you'll follow through and have checked that they're open to the idea. The last thing we want is to be in a forced, awkward situation. Yes, I have heard about that, where a family will have 2 singles over and they have no idea that the whole reason they're having them both over is so that they meet each other. That can be very awkward.
Yeah.
So if you feel like, oh, I just think they would be perfect together, make sure you communicate to both of those people before you do something like that, because that's very awkward for everyone.
Yes, I'm sure it would be. This single said that special days can be hard, and we've already touched on these Mother's Days and Valentine's Days, for instance. And from our perspective, we said to you that we're single, celebrate Mother's Day because you have a mother,
right,
and encourage friends that are mothers.
Yes.
And celebrate Valentine's Day. And we mentioned that in the other episodes, so I won't go on that again. But from the single side, they're just saying if there's a single lady that has invested in your kids, acknowledging that can be special on Mother's Day.
Absolutely.
Or giving a single girl a flower or some flowers can be special on Valentine's Day.
Yes.
That's worth hearing.
Yes.
We have just time for just a couple more here. Please know that we can be content in God as a single and also have some aspects that are emotionally challenging. We may be grieving our singleness at a time that seems odd and illogical to you, but we can't plan when these things trigger our emotions. Sometimes it's just seeing an older couple that has done life together and wondering if you will ever have that and so forth, or first day of school and wondering if you'll ever have kids.
Right.
And so really this is just as an awareness, I think, what they're saying. When the church, when those of us in the church are just aware of the emotions of our single friends.
Yes.
And we said to the singles, don't be snarky. Don't be snarky.
Yes.
Might be good for us to hear that as well. We shouldn't be
Absolutely.
snarky towards them.
And be sincere. When you see them and they look like they've had a hard day, then go by and ask if there's anything you can do. Ask if you can pray with them. Ask if they'd like to come over or go out, and just be a good listening ear.
Yeah. We don't love going to events alone, but we will to have a life. That's
Yes.
probably just an awareness that if we can include single folks in our side of things, include them, pull them in so they don't have to be alone. How about number 14 there?
We want to be treated like normal, whole people. We are not less or incomplete because we're single, and we don't necessarily need to be ministered to or pitied or have our own special group.
And that kind of goes in opposition of what was said earlier about we feel left out when there's not a ministry just for us.
True.
But this single is saying, so, there's both sides to that coin, I
Yes.
guess. Some feel like they need the single. Some just want to be treated as a normal part of the church.
Yes.
And so maybe, you just have to communicate what your need there is and find a way to make that happen.
Absolutely.
That's a valid way. We're about out of time here. So let's look at this last one. I thought this was really good,
Yes.
perhaps, though it would need wisdom.
Yes.
Single women need healthy, solid relationships with godly men. And what this means is older men.
Yes.
Some of us don't have godly fathers to lead or help. And we need men to whom we can go for help in any number of situations. This is why being friends with couples and not just their wives is so important for many of us. And in the culture we live in, the Me Too culture and the awkwardness of that culture,
Yes.
that one I think can be problematic.
Can be hard.
But in the church, if there is a need for that, then that can certainly happen.
Yes.
And it would take wisdom. So we'd always want to be wise. We want to be upfront. We want to make sure that we're always careful and respectful of differences and positions and places and responsibilities. But at the same time, that could be really good. I think that's valid, don't you?
Absolutely. And there would be nothing wrong with us having over a single young lady and her having questions for David. That never bothers me. And, I'm right there. I'm listening to the questions too. And of course, a married woman can be very aware of the time spent and the awkwardness of some of the questions. There may be some things that really the wife should handle, but it's never wrong for a young lady to be in the presence of a married couple and be asking a godly man for godly direction.
And so we are out of time. Let's wind things up like this. First of all, if you're single, we do believe you're valuable to the church. You're important to God. Singleness is celebrated in the Bible as desirable and favorable, and a way in which you can serve the Lord differently and sometimes in an even greater capacity than those of us who are married with other responsibilities.
True.
So we wanted to say that. And to you that are in ministry and to you that are married, it would be very wise for us to be very aware of the singles in our church who are often very needy as far as they're far from home.
Right.
They don't have family. They
Yes.
feel lonely. And we can reach out to them and treat them as just part of the church family and part of our own family. I think this is a reminder to me that Christianity is lived in the relationships in the church, not just couples with couples and singles with singles,
Right.
but all of us together serving the Lord.
Right. And we most naturally drift towards people who are in the same season of life as we are. I was just telling David this morning, sometimes it could seem to a single man, they got married and they totally forgot about me. But there are aspects of married life, family life that are all consuming. And so if you have a baby that's teething, for instance, you're going to seek out the mom at church who also has had babies who have teethed, and you're going to commiserate together and you're going to ask for advice. So that's just going to happen. But this is a good reminder to us as married ladies, as ladies with families, as all-consuming as that can be. Once you get that baby in the nursery or once you get your family settled on your pew, look around. Is there a single young lady that you can go over to? Can you just talk with her a few minutes, ask how her week is going, pray with her, ask her to sit with you, ask her over for dinner, and same with you gentlemen and the single men in your church.
That is awesome. Our time is gone, and this has been a longer episode. Thank you for joining us over these last few weeks as we've talked about singleness and being what you ought to be, and also the church ministering to singles. We look forward to your joining us next week as we'll be starting a brand new series, and we will see you then.
The Keeping It Young podcast is a Bax 5 Media production.